Everyone, and welcome back to the Viking Academy podcast. Now, on this episode, I am actually shooting this from my hotel room in downtown Toronto. That's right, I'm here doing a full week of coaching workshops for a bunch of entrepreneurs, but I didn't want to stop the Viking Academy podcast from happening. So, for those of you watching the YouTube channel, you'll notice that the background's a little different. Beside that point, I'm actually on the call today and I do a podcast with Dr. Don Barden. Now, Don Barden has been on the podcast before. He's a great friend of mine. Him and I get into a big conversation around purpose. And as with every conversation I ever have with him, it ends up going down different avenues and he enlightens areas that I never even thought about. And he's talked about how humans have really never changed. He's a behavioral economics specialist in this. He's also got full work in seminary. He's got all the different pieces to pull together, and he understands the way humans interact and the way they work. And he said something that really kind of struck me: is that humans have never changed. We've never actually changed. Our morality changes, but who we are deep down inside, it never changes. We're always trying to get bigger, better, stronger. There's always some sort of ambition inside of us. So we're the only species that actually tries to continually evolve purposefully. And we go down some other roads that I really want to share with you, but I'm not gonna tell you exactly what those are yet because I want you to go explore this episode yourself. It was fantastic getting to connect with Don again, go down the road of purpose, which is what I'm very passionate about, is helping you find your purpose. And I'm still discovering my own, being that explorer. So without further ado, let's go explore. Hey, Don, welcome back to the podcast.
Hey, man, thanks. I love being here and I love every one of your episodes. I'm listening to all of them. I've shared it all over the world. So I actually had a guy in Kenya I sent it to the other day. So you're now officially in Africa. So thank you
Oh,
thanks for what you're doing, man. It's awesome.
that's killer. Thank you so much. That's great. Yeah, I was just like, your backdrop is so killer, man. Your new place that you have is
Yeah.
awesome. Like, for
Yeah.
those of you that aren't watching the video, you can go to YouTube and check that out. But what do you got? You got jerseys in the background and you got
Yeah.
a pool
Yeah.
table. That's a man cave from,
Oh,
oh
yeah. This is
man, I
my
love it.
creative room. Yeah, my office is technically over there. That's where I'm very, very focused when I'm in there. It's got all the screens. It's work, whiteboards, rolling whiteboards, a little area over there. But when I need to be creative or I just need a ADHD break, I walk into this part of my office and it's got the pool table. It's got a little Peloton and I can ride for a minute if I need to clear my head. But yeah, it's sort of my life,
I love
and
it,
what you
man.
can't see over here behind is a lot of pictures of really, really cool people I've had the honor of meeting over the years. And it's funny, way before selfies were a thing. I was with a guy and an older gentleman, and he told me, he said, "Hey, did you bring a camera?" And I'm like, this is before cell phones had cameras, and I was like, why? He goes, it's more important to have a picture of you in an event or with somebody to create a memory for future generations than it is to have an autograph or a text or something like that. He said, think about it. If your great great grandkids can see you, let's say at the Masters tournament and Arnold Palmer's in the background, how cool is that to say, hey, that's great great grandfather, one of the greatest golfers ever? He said, always take pictures. So before selfies, I started taking pictures. So there's some pretty cool stuff on the wall with some people I've been honored to meet and do some work with and kind of get to know over the years. So it's kind of a fun place.
Who's your, if you were to look up there right now, which would be the most memorable one for you?
Oh, your best Canadian, William Shatner over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Captain Kirk himself, I got to meet him a couple times and lovely man, kind, nice, very, very present. And yeah, I think he's 94 or 95 now. And I probably
Yeah.
met him 5 or 10 years ago. But great, great, great guy. So
And he's
I
actually
mean, he's Captain
finally been
Kirk
to
for God's
state.
sake. Do what?
What's that?
I say he's Captain Kirk. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
that's a pretty cool thing. And I just saw something. He's on tour with Neil deGrasse Tyson, the astrophysicist now. And if you think about it, I thought that's really pretty cool because this is a guy who motivated more people in aeronautics and astrophysics than anybody. And he's actually been to space. He went to space on the Bezos, thing. And then you got Tyson, who's a brilliant astrophysicist. He's never been to space. Yeah, I
No,
don't know how many people he's inspired. I mean, he's inspiring, but there was this thing a few years ago at MIT where they interviewed all the engineers in the aeronautics and division, and over 50% of them were inspired by William Shatner and James Doohan, which was Scotty on Star Trek. So they were all like, yeah, when I was a little kid, I used to watch this and think, I can do that. I want to do that. So for the guy who's actually been an actor, nice, good, solid Canadian, who's actually been to space, but he's not an astrophysicist, he's not a pilot, he's just a storyteller. And I think that's brilliant. And so he inspired me when I was little, and I think he's number one. And that trumps a
that's
couple of
cool.
presidents and some other things that are around here. So it's pretty neat.
That kind of spurs me on to why I wanted to have you back on the podcast again. Not only because you got incredible stories and thought, you're a deep, deep thinker of life, man.
Yeah.
Like the last podcast, if anybody hasn't gone back and listened to it, it's one of the first ones we ever did on the Viking Academy. And it's awesome, man. It was just, you went deep. We went deep into so many
Oh, yeah.
areas, but the the thing that's just been kind of rattling around in my head, which is more the ethos of the Viking Academy, is purpose, like living life on purpose. And like you and I have seen, I mean, personally, on a personal side, you and I have gone through a bunch of stuff together, and we've been
Sure.
friends, and we've, helped each other through things. But what do you, I just see kind of like a rudderless, there's a lot of people that are rudderless, purposeless. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Going on
Yeah.
right now. And
Yeah.
and I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about what your personally, what your purpose is. What do you think it is? And how you've kind of, what you do to find your purpose and what actually motivates you, because um I think there's a lot of people that are just, we're kind of missing
Yeah.
that rudder. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? A lot of
Oh,
people are.
yeah, 100%. I think we're living in a world that we should be very grateful for because we've created a world through a lot of hard work. People did a lot of hard things to help get us to where we are. And people who talk about the younger generation, they're just flowing through. They don't have purpose or they don't have a goal. They don't have anything. And half my brain, or probably more than half, wants to say, isn't that great that we've worked so hard to get to a world where you can just exist? Is amazing. That is amazing. Fear for most of the Western world is gone. There's ups and downs, there's highs and lows, there's some moments where you wish you didn't have to deal with it. But at the end of the day, you're not that worried about it. And that took a lot of hard work from a lot of people. But if you look ahead and say, well, wait a minute, what is this going to create? There's a big question there because I think the thing that people lack the most is purpose. As you're flowing through things, that's fine. But step back for a second and say, but why? Why am I here and what am I willing to do? And I think that is the missing ingredient. So you're onto something there. I think that's it's needed now more than ever.
It's interesting because like you've hit something on the head there, which is that we've created such abundance. There's so
Mhm.
much abundance that it's actually caused, it's a great thing, but we don't stop to actually uh be grateful for it. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like
Right.
you don't know what you got till it's gone. It's because we get so used to having so much, and then when any little bit of it gets taken away, we throw a temper tantrum. Do
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Instead
Oh,
of
yeah.
just being grateful for the fact that it's all sitting there. And so, but I also, I can't, and I keep forgetting what the actual scientific experiment was. But do you remember the mice experiment where they brought in six mice, and they started six mice, and they gave them absolutely everything they needed, like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
all the food, all the water, all the everything they needed with no predators, and they just let them exist. And they
Yeah.
started, and then they added more, and they added more, and they added more, and they just, it got to the point, and there was no hardship, there was no difficulty,
Yeah.
there was unlimited food in abundance. And do you remember what happened?
Oh, yeah, they all died. They got fat and died. The one who made it was the ones who moved my cheese is the name of the study. Where the one off to the side, they kept moving around and making him work a little bit. So his purpose was to find the cheese, to keep moving, to look and to seek a better tomorrow. Thrived. The ones who just sat around and ate and were happy didn't work out so well.
Yeah,
They
that
died
was the
happy.
book. That was the book. That's a
Yeah.
fantastic book. Who Moved
Yeah.
My Cheese? But I'm
Yeah.
talking about there was an actual real life
Oh
study
yeah.
that they did where they put in the mice, and then this expansion of the mice got to about 600. And what happened was that there was a bunch that just would stop. The males stopped reproducing with the females. They would just sit there and groom themselves. Oh, look at how pretty I am, and the
Yeah.
rest of it. And I've had some conversations with people. They're like, they're seeing the world right now kind of
Yeah.
like that. Things are starting to look like that, where people, it's coming back to the selfies, right? And
Yeah.
let's post and just it's all pretty, and I don't need
Yeah.
anything. Um, it's good and bad at the same time because like we need like there needs to be some friction, there needs to be some obstacle, there needs to be, but the only way there's an obstacle is if there's something purposeful to get to. Do you know what I
Right.
mean? Like that's where
Right.
this purpose comes in. Like what is the purpose,
Yeah. Yeah, I
right?
agree. And that's where innovation comes from, right? If your purpose is to make a better life for yourself, your family, the people around you, then you're constantly looking at innovation. If you're fat and happy and not doing anything, then we bog down, we slow down. I saw an interview with Bernie Sanders, who I like a lot. I don't agree with him at all. I don't know how much Canadians keep up with Bernie, but Bernie would be the guy that you would love to have as your next door neighbor, and you want him to come over for some hamburgers and fries on a Saturday night and just shoot the ball. Bernie's
Yeah.
great, but he's a far, far left socialist. And he came out this week talking about that there are people like Elon Musk and these super hyper performers who have created enormous amounts of wealth, from it. And he's like, we need to limit them. And I almost fell out of my chair. I'm like, limit what? And they're like, they shouldn't have that much money. Now, though, keep in mind, Bernie's an extraordinarily wealthy man, very, very wealthy man. So I guess he's talking about everybody more wealthy than him. I don't know how he gets to this logic, but he's like, no, they shouldn't have that much money. And I'm like, but wait a minute, that much money is because they have a purpose. He wants to go to Mars. He wants to create interstellar. He knows that's what his purpose is. Now, is he going to make a few bucks along the way? Absolutely. No doubt about it. But he is catapulting us through innovation into things that is beyond what we can even comprehend right now. Same for Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bezos, I saw the other day, they said, do you feel guilty about being worth like 200 billion or whatever it was? And he said, I think you're missing the point. He said, in my purpose, which was to get people stuff faster and easier, to make their lives better. Okay. That's really what I wanted to do. I have been awarded great wealth from it, but I only own now don't quote me, but I only own like 20% of Amazon. So if I'm worth 200 billion, that means 800 billion or close to $1 trillion of wealth has been created for other people. So your purpose allows you to continue innovation and continue to look for stuff. Yeah, you're going to make some money on the way. Hope so. That'd be cool, if you did. But people who are laser focused on their purpose achieve great, great things. Those mice that get fat, yeah, it's not going to work out, for them. So
Yeah,
I'm
no,
all
it
in
doesn't
favor
work
of
out.
innovation and seeking your purpose, because I think that's how we survive. That's
Well,
what we do.
you and I are completely in alignment on that. I was at a business function I got invited to, and I was sitting around the table with all these entrepreneurs, and this one guy turned in and he actually said that. He goes, I think there should be a cap on how much money someone can make. And I was like, I almost fell off my chair. I was like, oh, and who decides how much that number
Yeah,
is? He goes,
that's
oh,
the
well,
problem.
we do. And I said, who are
Yeah,
we? Oh, the collective. We decide that there's a cap on how much. So you're basically saying you want to put a cap on people's ambition.
yeah,
You want to tell people what they can, how much. So in other words, you can only have so much happiness. You can only have so much joy. You can only have so much, like how do we artificially put that on there? It's
yeah,
like if someone, now, I think there's a line that we all cross or that governments are good for, which is if it becomes a monopoly, if it becomes too overbearing, and then there's
yeah.
no more, there's no room for competition, like
Right,
so we call it the purely capitalist way, then you need to curtail that.
right.
But to actually say that you can't let people make more money because and that's just, I think that's just jealousy and greed on
Yeah,
that. But if there was a cap on how much success one person could have, That certainly smells to me like a totalitarian way of
Oh, it's
thinking.
exactly
And
that's exactly what their purpose is power. People who say that their purpose is power, it's not social change. And I'm a behavioral economist. That's what I
yeah,
do. I look
yeah.
at the future and say, and I'm not knocking my peers, but my buddies in my industry that are classical economists, they love to look at what happened yesterday and tell you why it happened. That's easy. You're looking back in time. I dare you to turn the lens forward and say, but this is what is probably going to happen. This is what we believe is what's going to happen. And that's what we focus on. But the irony is to look forward, you do have to look back. So I spend enormous amounts of time studying history and looking back on human behavior and noting change and seeing how we change and how we adapt. And I've got this, after 40 years of doing this, I have a singular conclusion on human behavior. And it's real simple: we don't change. We're the same now as we've been forever. We are wired to be innovative. We are wired for growth. We are wired to seek a better tomorrow. That is what separates us from every other species on the planet. We're not the strongest. We think we're pretty smart, but we really don't know. I mean, the dolphins might be smarter than us. Nobody ever told us. But operating in what we do, we thrive in our ability to innovate and move toward purpose. We're the only species out there that has purpose other than survival and replication, having baby species or whatever it is, right? Most organisms around the world just want to reproduce and survive. We want to reproduce and survive, but seek a better tomorrow, grow, be driven. And that's because of purpose. But if you go back through history, and I just did this incredible, oh God, I spent a long time looking at pre-Columbus history in North America, Canada, the United States, and Mexico, and really, really studying it. There was no difference in how people behaved then as they behave now. It's all about, what are we doing? What is my purpose? And how can I create a better tomorrow? Now, our morality changes a lot. Our morality can swing all over the place. So there's some things that happened in the past that we probably wouldn't do today. But if you go back to the motivation, it's going to come down to purpose and innovation. And anybody who tries to curtail that and says, oh, no, you shouldn't make that much or you shouldn't do it. That's like saying, well, I know you'd make a lot of money doing solving cancer, but I think it's more important for you not to make money than it is for you to cure cancer. No, I think if somebody cures cancer, that we should build them the biggest castle, in the world if they want to do that. If we made our lives better, what's the problem with that? So when you hear people like Bernie, who again, I like Bernie. I wish he was my neighbor. I think he'd be a freaking riot to hang out with. I just grossly disagree with the guy when it comes to that. And I don't know what his purpose is other than to get elected, and to kind of feed off the population. If that's his purpose, he's doing a decent job. He's been there for a long time and he's made a lot of money by preaching rhetoric. But at the end of the day, we don't change. And we need to grow. We need to innovate. We need to have a purpose. And when you see hyper performers like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos or anybody else saying, my purpose is to make us interstellar. My purpose is to deliver things and give everybody access to things that they never thought they might have. And in the way, I might make a few bucks. Okay, I'm fine with that. I think it's great because, again, look at the trillions of dollars that's being created that allows other people to be innovative. Maybe Jeff Bezos shipped a part to somebody and they saw it and they're like, oh my God, I got this great new idea. And then they figured out how to do something and did it. Just the interconnectivity of all of our purposes is probably bigger than any conversation we can. It's like talking about astrophysics. Wow, really big, right? Well, you take all of our purposes and you try to connect them together, I don't know what to do. I don't even know where to begin. Other than we haven't changed, and anybody who tries to tell the entrepreneurial mindset or people who do find their purpose that they have to limit it, it's not a good formula. Not a good formula at all. So that's why I appreciate guys like you who are out there saying, hey, it's okay to be entrepreneurial. It's okay to have a big dream. It's okay to go for something. You're free. Go do it. And that's where great things happen.
I was been just you just triggered a thought in my head. So I've been reading Poor Charlie's Almanac,
Oh,
Charlie
yeah.
Munger.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh,
And
yeah.
there's a quote on the back of the book. It's lovely. It said there's an overriding principle in all science, political, financial matters that makes everything happen. He says, one is take a very simple idea, and number two, take it very seriously.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about right now is a very simple idea that humans are ambitious, innovative creatures.
Yeah.
That's the simple basic, and we don't change. That's who we are at our core, right?
Yeah.
That's what differentiates us from the other species. Let's just take it very seriously. So, in other words, let's do everything we can to protect, enhance, and support it,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Yeah.
and so that's it. That's it's so beautiful. Like, and it's interesting because you see the person that right. So everybody loves the underdog, right? You love
Yeah.
the other underdog story. You come from nothing, you build up and you become successful, but don't become too successful because if you do, they'll want to tear you down. It's like
Yeah.
that scene between the Joker and Batman. Remember Heath Ledger is the
Oh,
Joker and the
yeah.
Batman? And he goes, just wait. He goes, you and I are very much the same.
They're very
They'll
much the
build
same.
you up and then tear you down.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
And there's some incredible one-liners in that show. Like
Oh,
Heath
yeah.
Ledger was brilliant in that spot, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
that's psychologically, that's we cheer for the underdog to become something, but then when they become something, we tear them down.
Oh, yeah. Well, the,
Like,
the cool thing to me about that analogy is the Batman and Joker are the same person. Just one of them takes one path and the other takes another path. And but they're the same person, the same needs, the same desire, the same drive. One person took a moral stance for justice, that was Batman, hopefully, and the whatever warped brain that the Joker had didn't fit our morality scheme of today, but they clashed. But they were the same person. They had a purpose and they were innovative and drove toward it. And if you think about it, Bruce Wayne had a lot of money, right? Batman did. And that allowed him to go out and do things that made other people's lives better. So, yeah, that's a deep conversation, man, to get into purpose. But I will tell you something interesting. So I finished this Columbus study, and I started looking back at the American history, the originators of the United States. The or the Continental Congress, the Constitution, everything they did that was so innovative. It was probably the single biggest turning point in the world as we know it today. It was when those guys got together and they said, we're gonna try something new. But here's what's fascinating about it. If you think the United States is about to celebrate next year, next year, I don't know when this is going to air, but in 2026, it'll be the 250th anniversary of the United States. Okay. Now, if a generation is 60 years, that's only 5 people ago, right? So that's 5 greats ago. There are people who knew somebody who knew somebody who actually knew somebody. In other words, if you were a little kid and you met your great grandfather, and your great grandfather says, "Oh, I knew this old guy when I was your age, and he knew a guy that was old that was there when that happened." That's very, very possible. And if you go back and look at what did they want? They wanted freedom. They wanted opportunity. They had to deal with a moral construct that was going around, but they were willing to risk everything for their purpose. And they wanted it to happen. As I'm studying this and looking at it, I'm like, there is no difference between the way they thought then. They just applied it to a situation that was critical and it worked out. It was fine. It was good. But plenty of other times people will say, well, this is my purpose, and it doesn't work out. But that's okay too. It's just a matter of you being available when the time comes, that when you seek your purpose, are you prepared? And I think that's the great thing about the entrepreneurial mindset. You're prepared with your mind. How things work out, I don't know. A lot of stuff happens, right? But I don't know. It's just such a great thing to sit there and know that your life is deeper than just clocking in and clocking out. Now, your purpose might be to provide a safe environment for a child. Now, what you don't know is that child might be the person who cures cancer or creates interstellar travel or whatever. I don't know, but we're all part of a big machine and a big puzzle that's going on, and all we have to do is continue to advance the field. Keep moving forward, and all of our purposes, although they might seem trivial to some people, they might seem unrelated. They're not trivial, and they are related. Every single purpose on this planet is related in one way or the other. And we're just little bitty pieces that trigger something maybe a generation or two from now, or maybe while we're alive, if we're lucky enough to see it happen. But purpose is literally what separates us from every other species on the planet.
and so this, and I think you and I've talked about this
Yeah.
many times before. but I think I can reframe it even more so now. Is that like I for me, I look around and I'm in Toronto right now, and I'm going to be coaching at strategic coach this week to a bunch of entrepreneurs who are
Yeah.
ambitious and they're growth minded, and I love entrepreneurs, right? Because
Best in the
they
world.
they
Yep.
they I innovate, and I want to help them with their thinking, and that's the whole thing. Strategic coach is about changing your thinking, and when you change your thinking, it changes your behavior, and your behavior changes your results, right?
Yep.
So that's the chain of events. And I'm looking out over this city right now, and I can see out the Girain, and I'm looking out on the street, and I see everybody there. And I think of the world as a giant jigsaw puzzle,
Yeah.
right? And every piece has its spot. And so every person, everything here has its spot in the picture.
Yeah.
Without every single person, if one of that person, like there's one walking down there, he's got a bag right there. It looks like he's carrying like an Uber Eats right now.
Yeah.
I'm watching him. And so he's doing an Uber Eats, and he goes, yeah, well, what's the purpose of my life? I'm taking food to somebody. That's like, there's no purpose in that. I'm like, no, if that piece is missing, you take it out of the jigsaw puzzle, the picture's incomplete.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
the fact that anybody is actually alive and on the planet means you are here for a purpose. And the
Yeah.
interesting thing is, purpose in its core has embedded inside it, and this is going to be a bit of a shaker for those atheists and agnostics, is faith in a higher power.
Yeah. The
You follow me?
spirituality.
Like
Oh,
there is a
yeah.
spirit, because you can't have to say, well, my purpose is this, without saying, oh, so you believe in God. They'll be like, well, fuck off. I don't believe in God. I'm like, well, no, if you think if there like, do you know what I mean? There has
Oh,
to be there's a
yeah.
creator behind the scenes creating you for a purpose,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like, how can
100%.
you
Yeah.
like
We're
it's
here for a reason, right? There's a
oh
purpose behind our very existence. And
yeah.
I tell you what, I'm a big fan of Professor Brian Cox out of the UK right now. Brilliant physicist. And he starts every conversation by saying, look, there are things that we just don't know. We don't know what happened before the Big Bang. We don't know what would happen if we did accelerate beyond the speed of light. We got some theories, but these theories are only 100 years old and are tens of thousands or millions of years worth of existence. These are relatively new. So we don't know. But the purpose is to think through these things so that we can see it. But even he comes back as a physicist and says, beyond everything we know, there has to be something greater. There just has to be. Now, are we irrelevant in the universe? Maybe. Maybe. I mean, seriously, think about that. If you
You
look
don't
at
know.
where
Yeah.
we are, and you
Yeah.
talk to every astronaut, oh my gosh, I just forgot the famous Canadian guy out of Toronto, astronaut. But anyway, you talk to those guys and women who've been in space, and they look down, and there's a humbling that happens when they look down and see how small the Earth is and how fragile it is. And then they look back out in the universe and go, wait a minute, there's 400 trillion galaxies, each having 400 trillion stars, each having, say, our solar system's average 10, 12, 15 planets around it. That's 400 trillion times 400 trillion times 10 or 12. There's some pretty good odds, that something else has happened out there. But what if we were the first? What if, when everything happened, that our species, seeking purpose, seeking identity, seeking the ability to communicate and express ourselves, what if we are the consciousness of the universe? What if we're the first ones that we're able, as part of this grand scheme from the creator, to look back and say, I got an idea. And if you think about the concept of an idea, that will blow your boom. Well, what do you mean you have an idea? I don't know how many chickens have ideas. I don't know how many cats have ideas.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know. We're special. And the thing that made us special is something bigger than us, but we don't know what it is. But that thing, that spark is there. Whether we're relevant or not, I don't know. That's not of our generation. I don't think to know. But at the end of the day, we have purpose, and that purpose is a gift that's given to us uniquely over every other life form that we know. And I think that's the creator spark. I think that's the thing in there that separates us. And the challenge, I think, Eric, is belief versus know. What do you believe versus what do you know? And I think I'm a big proponent of this. When somebody says they believe in the creator, they believe in something, they believe in whatever. If you say believe, that means you're admitting that there's a little bit of doubt in your head, right? There's just a little bit of doubt on it. If you say you know, I know that to be factual. I know what the ratio of the gravitational pull around the moon is. That's fact. It's not going to change. Okay, I know that. But if you say I believe, then there's a little bit of doubt in your mind. Like I believe in Santa Claus, but that reindeer part, man, that's a little. I'm struggling with the reindeer thing. Okay, but I'm good with the big fat guy with the jelly belly and wanting to come bring me presents. I'm good with that. But boy, there's just something about those flying reindeer that I'm not grasping. That's how we look, unfortunately, at the creator. I believe, I believe, I believe. I think the great innovators, the people with purpose, they don't believe, they know. They just know. And the first part of
Yeah.
knowledge is admitting that you might not know all of it, but you know that that's a part of who we are. So the people that go through without any spark, without any vibe or connectivity to that, um, I think you might miss your purpose on it a bit. And I'm not being religious about it. I'm not saying that anyone's right or wrong, but there's something. There's just something that sparks, and that changes the belief into the I know part of it. So when you see these people that are super successful and you say, well, they manifested it or they're so confident, they're cocky. No, that's not true. They know. And they know because they tapped into that higher thing, whatever it is. And so I've always loved how you bring that back in because it's very, very real. Whether we understand it or not, it's real. And that separates us in our purpose from everything else.
And that's so there's Sadhguru. Have you listened
Oh
to
yeah.
Sadhguru? Okay.
Oh,
Sadhguru is a big spiritual teacher. And
oh
he
yeah.
would think, and he would refer back to a guy named Krishnamurti. Krishnamurti was way back before. I think I introduced you to Krishna.
Yeah.
Did you know
Oh
about
yeah. Oh
Krishnamurti
yeah.
before?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you did.
No,
Okay.
no. You opened me up to that.
Okay. So, but you go to Krishnamurti's, and he was like a spiritual teacher, but he was the most direct. Like he just cut like a knife. When he
Yeah.
talks, he's like rips it apart and doesn't talk in airy fairy, like, so we call it the woo woo stuff and belief and stuff. He
Yeah.
just goes, boom. He goes, listen, he goes, do not believe or disbelieve anything I say. He said, do not believe it. The minute you say, I believe or I don't believe, you have just shut yourself off from the truth, which
Yeah.
is exactly what you're saying. It's just
Yeah.
like faith is good, but it can block you from truth. Do you know what I mean? Like believing in something, believing in it. And it's weird because I don't know if you felt this, but I do. I feel it all the time. Like if I ever make a comment or make a declaration to anybody or anything about this is this is true or this is going to happen, if I have any doubt in my mind, I get this feeling when
Yeah.
I speak it, right? When I
Yeah.
speak it, I can feel that unease because
Yeah.
I'm not sure, instead of going like the Dalai Lama starts every, if you ask him a question, everything he starts with, he goes, they'll ask him a question, he'll go, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
And he starts that's the answer. The beginning of every answer is, well, I don't know.
Yeah.
But this is my experience. And then he says something profound that blows
Yeah.
your mind up, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but it's that being very clear. Oh, fuck, you know what? Just connected to another thing, another strategic coach concept. Dan is so tapped in spiritual, but he never talks about being
Yeah.
spiritual. But he's a tapped in spiritual dude. He
Yeah.
talks about understanding where certainty and uncertainty, the line where uncertainty and certainty mix. So he says, as an entrepreneur, your confidence is based on what you're certain about and knowing where uncertainty starts. And that's that line between know and believe. Do you know
Yeah.
what I mean? So
Oh,
there's that
100%.
there's that line there, right? So,
Oh yeah.
but just being okay with something is inspiring me. I don't know where it comes from, but
Yeah.
it's not didn't come from me. I'm going to go chase it. And then once I chase it, maybe I will end up knowing
Yeah.
why that thing inspired me. But
Absolutely.
so it's like having it's like having your feet on the ground but your head in the clouds. Like
Yeah.
you're on both parts, right? As
Yeah.
that human being, we're searching for meaning, and as the going through it, you actually will know or not know.
Yeah. Yeah. And
But
that is
don't
the meaning, by the way. We're searching for
yeah,
something that's right in front of us. You just described the meaning of life. It's going into something, knowing or not knowing, but moving ahead and doing something for generations in the past. Like, seriously, this is a fun economic statistic. So, this is the year 2025 for another month, right?
yeah.
100 years ago, that's two people ago. So, just two people ago, like, I forgot the exact number. Don't somebody, oh, you said 45%, it's actually 43%. But anyway, 40 something percent 100 years ago of people who existed in North America, Toronto, the United States, anywhere, did not have indoor plumbing. They went outside to pee and poop. That was two people ago. But somebody's purpose was, hey, how can we design a civil engineering model to make people's lives better? And we don't even think about that now. None is so second nature to us, but we've somebody's purpose, somebody's idea, somebody's belief that was beyond doubt that became knowledge. And they said, I know I can fix this problem. And by the way, the Romans already had running water in toilets. Okay. If it wasn't for the plague, think about where we'd be. But if you look at these people and what they're doing, it sort of resets the bar, I guess is what I'm saying. That our purpose in life can be reset because somebody else's purpose just made your life better. But the core of our humanity, the core of who we are, Eric, I don't believe has changed since day one. That's why you can look back at Buddha. You can look back at the Dalai Lama. You can look back at the Christ figure. You can look back at all these people and read their work and go, wow, there's nothing like take the Bible, for instance. There's nothing. And I went to seminary. So, full disclosure, you want to screw up your faith, go to seminary. That will mess you up because you start going, huh, that's not what my fifth grade Sunday school teacher told me. Well, yeah, but guess what? They were doing the best they could. You were fifth grade. They were just giving you a Pop Tart and trying to get you out of there. But, it's okay. But you start looking at this and you realize throughout all of history, all of the great spiritual leaders have said the same thing over and over and over. And it starts with just believe in something greater than yourself and understand that as you're finding your purpose, the only absolute, the only construct that we can say that we can bet on is that love wins. And we're the only ones who can do that we know of, certainly on this planet and maybe in the universe. We're the only ones that can say, yeah, but within our inherent wiring, there's this thing called love. And love will always win. There's gonna be good times and bad times. There's gonna be some times where we think there is no love. The God is dead. What? It just happened here. But at the end of the day, we always pull ourselves back out and we always get back on that track. And I think that is the creator. That is that thing inside of us that separates us. So while we're seeking purpose, it might be self afflicted. We might say, I'm just doing this selfishly because I want $1 trillion and I want to be king of the world. All right, go for it. We'll see how that works out for you. But the ones who are out there saying, I have my purpose, and it's wrapped with this intensity of knowledge that love will win. And if I love myself, I love the people around me, I love the opportunities that life has given me, I love the chance that I live in a world where I can seek my purpose. Because you go back 3 people ago, 4 people ago, 5 people ago, look at Toronto then, when it was part of the Quebec situation, in Eastern Canada, the French were there. You go back to Toronto, and what I love about Toronto, there's still some of those old buildings. You can walk down Queen Street and go, wow, that building's been here a minute. That's what it looked like back then, right? But you see those beautiful, big, giant skyscrapers, and across from La Germain there on Mercer Street in Toronto, they built the Nobu Hotel, Nobu, whatever it is. It's gigantic. You look up at it, you're like, oh my God. Well, I remember 10 years ago when that was a little factory warehouse that had an old comedy store and the old Gretzky's in it. And now you look at it and you think, wait a minute, these young kids who are growing up now will have a part of their life where they will never know what it looked like in the past. But that was only 10 years ago. So look at how fast we're changing. But the inherent nature of ourselves never changes. So going back to what you said, you want to limit that? No, you can't build that new building there. You can't make people's lives better. You've got enough. Well, you're killing the concept of love. You're killing the concept of knowledge. You're killing the gift that we've been given by the Creator, and that is to move forward, that our purpose drives us forward. And I think that's the touch. I think that's the thing that we've gotten, the gift that separates us from everybody else. But we're all the same. We haven't changed. We're not going to change. So trying to put a cage around us, that's not going to work.
Well, there and brings me to the other part of the question that I wanted to talk to you about is now that we know that we haven't really changed, and I look back on that and I think human condition, fighting for survival. I call it the lizard brain. We've talked about a lot of this.
Oh
The
yeah.
lizard brain kicks in, and all of a sudden, you're looking on a social media post, and your brain can't determine the difference between what's just a fake attack on you and a real one. So
Yeah.
we have all these lizard brain responses and all the chemicals in our body, and that's why everybody's so stressed out and tension wise, is because they keep looking at the screen thinking there's a saber-toothed tiger trying to kill them,
Right.
like
Yeah.
it's rushing at you and going to kill you. So your body's going,
Yeah.
right. So we have all this tension from all these attacks, but they're all not real, right?
Right.
So it's a lizard brains going on. And I look at this and I think we are still running on our original programming, right?
Yep.
And so my programming for me, and I've done a lot of work on myself in terms of going, okay, so I've got DNA programming. So I've got lineage from whatever happened back when the Vikings, and I did you ever done a 23andMe, like you did your
No,
DNA?
my brother did it. Assuming we really are brothers, I got his idea. If we're not brothers, then it's all wrong.
Okay, okay. I did mine, and like literally I'm like 99.9% Norwegian and
Yeah.
like 0.1% Swedish. Like I'm literally
You're a
Viking. I'm
Yeah.
pure Viking, like it's
Yeah.
crazy. And so I've probably got DNA that has trauma in there from from a battle that one of my ancestors had going across to England to attack English or whatever. So I've
Yeah.
got this DNA memory that's in there. So we know that that's just, it can come in. Then I have all the traumas that happened, all the things that happened to my family lineage. Then I have from my birth to where I am now and all the things that happened to me. So I've got all this programming, right? So I programmed to behave certain ways, right?
Yep.
So you said that we've never really changed other
Right.
than our morality, which is, I get that now, right? So our morality, we might say, well, it's not really appropriate to walk up and shoot someone in the head with a gun just
Yeah.
because they pissed you off, right? Even
Not
though,
going to end
the
well for
wild,
you. Right.
like
Right.
the Wild West, right? You go
Yeah.
out and you do a gun fight and you said, no, you said yes to the duel, so you're dead. It's your problem, right? So our morality has changed, but we haven't changed. But for us to I don't know, survive or thrive, or to continue to not destroy ourselves in the making, right? Call
Sure.
ourselves the mice experiment, where we have so much abundance that we start fighting and like the similarities between that study and what's going on right now are very scary close.
Yeah.
Close. You're saying we haven't changed. You said also you don't think we will change, but I see a need for us to evolve in our consciousness. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me, I see a need for us to level up in terms of reprogramming the system, right?
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know how that's going to happen, but I
Oh, I
definitely
do.
see a need for it. And Krishnamurti was big on this way back when he was talking about it. He goes, there's a need for change. I see it. It's clear. Like we need it. It has to happen.
Yeah.
He didn't say how it was going to happen, but what do you think about that in terms of
Oh, I got a
what
big
we
theory on
need?
that. I agree with you 100%. The problem is, and I'm going to nerd out. I put my doctor hat on here. There's a thing
Please
called
do.
social construct. Okay.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we exist with this feeling that we're here for something bigger, right? But we
Yeah.
get caught up in a social construct where society is telling you, calm down, and you see some outliers bring up that topic. You shouldn't be that successful. They usually get busted out and fade away. But at the end of the day, we have things in our society that dictate what these feelings are, and how you should feel about it. And we hide behind morality and do it. The problem is that we are taken advantage of by a lot of people who look at that rat study, the mice study, and go, wait a minute, if 4 out of 5 people are fat and happy over there, how can we keep them fat and happy and let them work for us, even if they don't know they're doing it? So, and that is, and I'm going to piss a lot of people off here, that's what most religions do. Religion says, I'm going to structure you in this way. And oh, by the way, it has very, very little to do with the scriptures that you're reading, and saying is so important to how you live your life. You read the scriptures, you listen to the Dalai Lama, you listen to the Christ, you listen to the Bhagavad Gita, you listen to all these things, and you say to yourself, wow, that makes great sense. And you start doing it, and then somebody goes, well, hold on. We're in the country club here, whether it be the church or whatever, and you've got to behave this way. That's the people who are controlling the mice. That's the people who are taking advantage of it. So it's going to take, I believe, a social change that when that happens, it's going to open our minds up to realize that two things. One, we're not as relevant as we thought we were. And two, we now have permission to tap into that creator thing, to tap into that thing that we were given. I think we're our own worst enemies, and that too has not changed. So what we got to look at, what you're saying is, what's going to be that catalyst? What's going to be that thing that changes? I believe with all of my heart, Eric, that it's going to be when we do seek the stars and we do find out that maybe we're not alone, or maybe there's a bigger picture than what we think. Then we're going to go, uh-oh, maybe we need to rethink this a little bit. And I think that's going to force a lot of change within that social construct, where we're going to look at and go, oh, okay, it worked, it was necessary, but we've just catapulted our understanding of our purpose in not just life as individuals or as a planet, but in the universe. Once we make that move, once we tap in to that, I think we're going to go into levels that we've never seen before. I think we're going to unlock the things that are holding us back and cast them away. And that will allow us to do great things. Because again, go back and look at history. You see great people that fought the system and they beat it and they caused us to have a better life today. We're still doing that. But we have to be able to say, but what is going to put an end to this? And it's interesting. We talk about judgment and purpose and looking back on history. And I've been telling especially young students this a lot lately. Under no circumstances do you think your morality is better than any other thing in the past. So what I'm trying to say to people is, do not judge the past ever. Learn from it, accept it. You can even say, I would have done that differently. And that's valid. There's nothing wrong with that. But don't judge it, man. Just don't. And the reason why is I believe that most people are doing the best they can within that social construct of what they had at the time. But here's what we need to realize. That event, that catastrophic event that's going to change the way we think about our thinking, has not happened yet. So we're still just a little bit bigger, faster, and better. We communicate differently, but we're still the same people, right? Which means now you flip yourself into looking at the future. Your great-grandchildren, your great-great-grandchildren are going to look back at us talking today, and they're going to say, those barbarians, they're barbaric. They're doing things that, oh my God, they had surgery where they cut into people. They actually had to communicate. I didn't just step into a transporter and show up in Victoria or Toronto where you are now. Why didn't you just blink your eye and show up there? Those barbarians still had to use planes and cars. It's just we can't judge the past because we're the past of our future selves. So do you want to be judged? Nope. Okay. Then what do? We sit there and start respecting people for their purpose and giving people the opportunity to seek their purpose. And those whose purpose is to harm people, to take advantage of the fat mice that are sitting there just eating their cheese, the system will take care of them. And I've said this for years. My favorite Don quote is that Darwin was right. It's just he wasn't talking about biology. He's 50-50 on biology. I went back and recently read Origin of Species, went deep into his work, and I thought, God, what a brilliant guy. And his brilliance wasn't just he was thinking differently about stuff. He was saying it in a way that the average reader could read it and comprehend it. That's the hard part. Okay. So Darwin was brilliant in what he knew. Now, looking back on it, we're like, okay, you were right about natural selection. You were right about mutation. You were right about some of these other stuff. Evolution, yeah, that didn't work out. But, okay, you apply 100% of what he did to economics, not biology. Apply Darwinism to economics, he's right 100% of the time. So when you see these
Yeah.
people who flare up and want to curtail you from your purpose, who want you to be one of those fat mice, it works for a little while. But eventually, natural selection takes over, and society says, we're not going to do this anymore. So we're in this sort of check and balance system now, but too many people don't seek their purpose. They don't think they're free to do it, and they're not willing to put the risk in it, like the entrepreneurial mindset, to go and do it. And that's okay. Man, if they're happy, God bless them. It's fine. You know, everybody doesn't have to be an entrepreneur or type A and do stuff. That's fine. But don't live a life without any form of purpose or recognition, and without a knowledge that love will win if you just put the time and effort. But there's going to be highs and lows and ups and downs. But you never know if your purpose was to smile at somebody one day or to buy somebody a Coke, you know, and that made their day and they went home a little bit happier. And in that happiness, they had an idea. And that idea took 20 years to percolate inside their head and then manifested itself as something that changed our life. And it all happened because you bought somebody a Coca-Cola. You know, that could be your purpose. But when you take that away from people, it just doesn't end well until we finally say we're not going to put up with that anymore. And that's the creator part of us coming in and saying, no, we're not wired for that. We're not wired to be limited. We're not wired to be told we can't do something. So I love it how you talk about purpose, because we can prove through history that we haven't changed. But within that, that's not a bad thing. We are people of change. We are people who seek purpose. We are people who love each other. We are a race of and a species that wants a better tomorrow. Just hang in there. You know, it'll happen.
Yeah.
It really will. It might not happen when we're alive, but I kind of got a feeling it will. I think that catastrophic, or not catastrophic, cataclysmic shift in social constructs is going to happen in the next 20 years. I really believe that. I
I,
do.
I'm glad you brought that up because I've actually made that comment to some people and they kind of looked at me jokingly. They're like, "Yeah, right, whatever, Eric." And I said, "No, but seriously." I said we have been working on a lizard brain for so long, and we've been acting this way for so long, and that the only thing that's really going to save us is when the aliens finally make first contact.
Mm-hmm.
And when they make first contact, all of a sudden it's going to be like all of a sudden, bong,
Yeah.
holy shit. And it's
Yeah.
going to go one of two ways. One of two ways.
Oh, yeah.
It'll be one of two ways. It'll be like now humanity is united because we have
A singular purpose.
a singular purpose, which is
Yeah.
like we've been open. We're either going to have an opening of the consciousness. We're going to elevate our consciousness because the first contact with the alien life form or the other dimensional beings, because there's dimensional beings on multi dimensions that will make contact with us, will give us our upgrade, will help us have our upgrade. That's option one. Option two is we will now, as a human race, finally go, oh, well, now we have a new enemy. Let's bind together. Now we're fighting the aliens, right? Like, you know what I mean? Because now
we hope they're good guys.
No,
we really hope they're good guys.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's going to be one of the two ways. It'll either be, but if first contact happens and they become the new enemy, we won't have evolved. Do you know what I mean? Like it will not bring our consciousness to a new level, because all we'll be doing is running on old programming, which is find the, survival is number one, and therefore I need to find the enemy, the thing that's going to kill me, and I gotta kill it. I gotta kill it first.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. But you know what's interesting? You're familiar with that comet thing everybody's been talking about, A1 something, who's going through our universe in a weird trajectory, right?
Yeah.
Going through the solar system, and a lot of these people are creating these conspiracy type things. It's an alien ship, and granted, there's something to it. There is something to this comet that's going through at such perfect mathematical trajectories that it's navigating all the and please don't anybody call and say, oh, we got that wrong. I'm paraphrasing what I've learned, is that the way it's going through our solar system, it's at the perfect spacing to analyze every planet on a singular shot. It's not just passing by Pluto and we're never going to see it again. It's hitting all of them as it goes through, spinning around the sun and going off. And I heard somebody talking about it the other day. They're like, I think you're limiting yourself to think that is a comet. You're also limiting yourself to think that, people are like, oh, it's an alien ship. What if it's both? And I was like, huh? And the guy said, yeah, think about this. If you're on the other side of the universe and you know of a comet that's flying around without any propulsion, it's just a naturally occurring event. And you said, this is great entrepreneurism. How can we use that as a vehicle for some type of device that can help us track things? So you take a comet that's naturally going around the universe and you put a science station on it without anybody on it. And that science station is relaying the data back to you 100 light years away or 1,000 or 1,000,000 light years away. It can be both. And when they said that, my brain just exploded because I'm so programmed, like most people, to think, oh, it's just a comet, or, oh my God, it's an alien ship. Oh, it can be both? Yeah.
Yeah.
We would do that. That's something we would do if we knew how to do it. So again, think about it. Somebody on the other side of the universe, purpose might have been to explore the galaxies in ways that had never been done before. And some entrepreneur on some other planet was smart enough to go, that comet everybody talks about that kind of flies around, it's got a cool trajectory. What if we threw something on it and we tracked it and we were able to pick up data? That's a cool way of doing it. And I'm like, that's entrepreneurism from the other side of the universe. That's somebody with a purpose who said, oh, I got an idea. We can take something that's a raw material and turn it into something of value. So you start looking at it that way and you're like, oh, well, what did that just teach us? Maybe we can change the way we think about how we think about our thinking, and maybe we can look at things like that. So I just think we got about 20 years where our social construct, the way we've known it for the past 2,000 or 3,000 years, is going to be radically shaken up. And I hope it's for the good. I really do. But it's going to cause us to look back and think our purposes have been limited because other people are telling us how we're supposed to behave. And we bought into it. We were those fat mice that just sat around. But when more of us start breaking out, more of us become like Elon Musk or Bezos or any of these great entrepreneurs out there who've really radically changed the world. Imagine what it'd be like now if you say, well, there's only 1 or 2 Elons and Jeffs out there. Yeah, but what if there's 1,000? What if there's 10,000? Think about what we're going to accomplish when that happens. But it's going to be the destruction of social construct. And I think it's going to come when we realize that we're not as relevant as we thought we were. And then that removes all the pressure. And we start saying, okay, how do we all work together? How do we join forces with all these purpose-driven lives out here and make it work together for something that helps everybody? And maybe we don't have so many fat mice sitting around after that's over with. But I think that's coming. I really do. And I hope it happens in our lifetime because that'd be fun to see. If it doesn't, that's okay. Wasn't our purpose. It's fine.
That wasn't our time. That wasn't our
Wasn't
time.
our time.
It did. So I had a thought. It just and I don't know if I've ever thought about this before. Is that you were talking about how religion is a control. We'll call it the bureaucracy, right? The entrepreneurialism. So entrepreneurs create value until it becomes bureaucratic, and then the bureaucratic loop creates control. So bureaucracies create controls. Entrepreneurialism creates value. So like it's up, and one goes up and one goes down, shall we say. And so you've got this religions, all these religions. I've done this, not to the extent that you've had, but I've done the same thing. Bhagavad Gita, the Colburn Bible, the regular Bible, all these, or the Hebrew Bible, all of these, right? They're all saying the same thing. They all say the same thing. But then each religion becomes the bureaucracy that controls the people. So I just had this vision when you said, the freedom to explore, the freedom to express yourself and explore. If every single human on the planet knew inside them that there was a spark of divinity and there was a higher power that brought them here for a purpose, and that we're all here experiencing and enjoying this experience because of this higher power, without all of the controls around it, with the bureaucracy telling you how to engage with this higher power. But if we all had that spark within us, all of a sudden I just instantly saw cohesion, complete free individual freedom
Yeah.
with a unifying, simple. This comes back to poor Charlie's Almanac, actually.
Yeah.
A very simple idea and taking it very seriously. The simple
Yeah.
idea being there is a creator who's created every one of us, and we're here for a purpose. Every single person here is here for a purpose. Inside that purpose is an inherent knowledge of a higher power,
Yep.
and take it very seriously. And
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden I saw clearly that we would all be able to instantaneously want to get along.
Oh, yeah.
Like that
Yeah.
is the enlight that's like that
Yeah.
just was hitting me so clear.
Oh, yeah, and that's the same message, from the Buddhists, from the Hindus, from the Christians. All of that is the same, and I said the other day, and I'm sure I'm gonna get hit by lightning for saying this, but Jesus himself, who I'm a Christian, I'm a big fan of that dude, but he was a fantastic Buddhist with a Jewish accent. That was Jesus. He was a Buddhist with a Jewish accent, and so you look at this and go, "Well, wait a minute. Is he changing the world?" Yeah, he did a pretty good job changing the world. We actually measure time by that dude's existence. That's pretty powerful. That's one of those attaboys you got to go, didn't see that coming. So that's okay. So you made a big impact. Okay. And 1/3 of the world follows it. But I would challenge people that it's more than 1/3. It's probably 90% of the people follow it. They just follow it through different distributors of the same message. And
Mm,
so I've never met a Buddhist I didn't like. I've never met a Mormon I didn't like. There's so many good people out there that have different traditions, but they're limited to the concept that's created by the social construct, right? Like I've got this event coming up. It's a Catholic mass coming up that I'm going to participate in. I'm not Catholic. I love Catholics. I've done a lot of work in the Catholic Church. They love me because I'm not Catholic. Okay, that's why I get hired by the Catholic Church, because there's no politics. I'm just a happy little Protestant boy that they're like, he's pretty bright. We'll hire him, and it eliminates politics. Okay, it's good.
yeah.
But I'm going to this Catholic event coming up, and it's going to be a full mass, and they already said, you can't take communion, and I'm like, why not? It's communion. For those who don't know, the Christian church, communion is a traditional ritual that is about community. It's about bringing people together. They're like, well, you're not Catholic. So when we ask for people to come up for communion, you're just got to stay seated. And I was like, huh. Oh, that's really Christ-like, isn't it? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah. So it's kind of like,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
okay. It's your country club. It's your tradition, not mine. If I get invited to go have dinner at some restaurant and I say I want a Coke and they say we only serve Pepsi, all right, we'll have Pepsi. I would prefer a Coke, but I'll take the Pepsi, right? It's their place. They can do what they want to do. There is no judgment from me on that. But I'm looking at that going, what's the point of that? The point of that is to take your own members and say that you're so special that you can only do this thing if you do what we tell you to do. And my biggest thing when it comes to purpose, as people are trying to find their purpose and figure out what it is, but they're struggling with social constructs around it, I always tell people this one thing to remember. You speak to be heard. You write to be read. So if you write a book, or anybody takes my books and they read them, it's written so that you can read it and understand it, not in my voice. If you know my voice, that's fine. You read a book from somebody you hear their voice in your head as you're reading it, right? But at the end of the day, that text is written in grammatic form so you can read it and you can absorb it and you can process it and you can make whatever you want to. If I'm giving a lecture, it's completely different than the book. I'm speaking because I know you're going to hear it, and you hear different than you read, right? So you speak to be heard, you write to be written. The problem in the social construct, which destroys purpose, is when somebody says, oh, let me tell you what I read. So they take something they read and they turn it into a voice, and they're telling you what it said, and you don't want to go back and read it yourself. You're just going to follow their line. You're going to believe what they say. And that is the biggest reason people fall short of purpose. It's because you fall into social construct because you're listening to somebody tell you what they said the authority meant. So that's their biased opinion that you're following, like those little mice eating the cheese, and they know that, and they're doing that to control you and do it. So I always tell people, like, especially Christians, when they talk about something biblical, I'm always like, well, how have you read the Bible? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, how long did it take you? And they're like, oh, I've been reading it my whole life. Okay, well, man, you should have been through the volume a few times by now, right? I mean, have you read it from beginning to end? And they're like, oh, well, no, and you see them start backpedaling. And I'm like, okay, you believe in something, again, the doubt. You believe in something that has been written, which means you're supposed to read it, okay, to understand it. But you're not going to do that. You're going to let somebody else tell you what it said and hope to hell that they're right. But guess what? Most of the time they're not. And they don't mean to not be. Some people do, some people don't. But they're telling you what something else says based on their bias, their opinion, their thoughts. So if you're saying, well, wait, I've got that divine spark in me that says I have a purpose that's so deep, I want to do stuff. And they go, yeah, no, you can't. You just can't. Like, I grew up in the old South. I grew up in deep South United States. And I remember being told when I was a little boy, if alcohol touches your lips, you're going to hell. That was the belief system. And my mother, God bless her, she's still alive. I'm pretty sure she still believes that. And that's okay. That's her tradition. But think about that, as me growing up, how confusing that was as a young boy and as a teenager to think, how come everybody's having fun but me? What are all those people going to hell? Well, guess what? That was me listening to somebody who said what they read, and I didn't take the time to read it until I went back and threw myself into academics. And I was like, they're full of crap. There's no scripture out there in any language or any religion that says that. But somebody said something, that somebody said something, and somebody said something, and there's probably a reason behind it. And it has mutated, Darwin, it has mutated itself
Yeah.
into today's construct. We have to break that down. And I think the only thing that's going to happen is a big event, that comes in and forces us to rethink the way we think about our thinking. And then what will happen is you realize that, and you said this brilliantly, great entrepreneurs, the changers, the people who are moving us forward, they're not afraid to change the way they think about their thinking, right? They're not afraid to
Yeah.
say, wow, we now know something is true versus believing is true. We know. So we can take that and go to another level and take it up a notch. As we're continuing to force people not to do that, to believe, which means you should be doubting that this social construct that somebody else is creating for you, man, imagine what'll happen when that weight is gone. When that weight says, look, you're free to be you, man. You can go do whatever you want to do. And nobody, they might not like you, they might disagree with you, but nobody's going to say you can't.
Yeah.
That's when social change happens. That's when we start to go, oh, but that's what we have to break free of. We have to do that. And every time there's been catastrophic, I keep saying it's catastrophic, cataclysmic jumps, like monster jumps, it's because somebody said BS. I'm not going
Yeah.
to do that anymore. I don't
Yeah.
believe in the Church of England, so I'm going to go across the water over there and start something else. I think that there's a better way to get around the world to navigate this. I think that this idea about, hey, if the birds can figure out how to fly, we can too. And some
Yeah.
couple of guys that made bicycles in Ohio go to North Carolina and get on a beach and they create flight. And it changes the world because somebody believed that they could do something, even though they doubted. But no, they weren't going to let anybody stop them. And that's how we jump. That's how we make these advances that are out there. So until we all get on the same line and say, okay, don't hurt people, don't hurt kids. There's some things that are just truths, that you need to do. Other than that, go do your thing, man. And then we see all these people be free to think about a better tomorrow and do it. Then there are not going to be so many fat mice, in the cage. And
Yeah.
then one of those fat mice could have been the one that cured cancer, could have been the one that traveled the speed of light, could have been something, but they wasted it because it was easier to listen to somebody say you can't do something. And I think that's the difference.
Man, that puts a bow on this conversation. You and I can sit here and talk for hours and hours, but
Sure.
we got a time limit here. Otherwise, I would want to keep going with you. I just want to add one thing to what you just said. That was so beautiful. Is that brings up the ethos of the Viking Academy, which is go explore.
Yeah.
right? Embrace your inner Viking, go explore your three dimensions of mind, body, spirit, and experience the joy of self discovery. So don't believe or disbelieve anyone. Go find out for yourself. And
Right.
that's what you're saying. Like, and when you go look, when you take that curiosity, that being childlike, not childish, but childlike, and be curious and go and look and don't close yourself off, that's when the joy of discovery happens. And I think you
Yep.
you nailed it, man. Is that you will find at the end of that search, or during the search, not the end of the search, sorry, that was probably wrong, but during the process of discovery, is you will find out that love always wins.
Yeah, all day long. And you
Yeah.
reminded me of something. The great American writer Mark Twain once said, and he said it in passive. I don't think most people understood what he meant till later on when he clarified it. They said something about all the problems in the world, and he said, "You want to solve your personal problems or any of the world's problems? Just travel." And I think a lot of people interpreted that as, well, you get out, you see the world, it's big, it's pretty, take a break. That wasn't what he was saying. What he was saying is when you travel, you realize how common your problems are and you realize how insignificant your problem is. And that happened to me. First time I went to China, I've been there a few times, but first time I went there, I had an interpreter there, lovely lady, as sweet as she could be. She had her one child, and she and I were talking one time on a break, and she was just telling me about how much she cared about her kid and her husband and how they just want to live the best life. And they're hoping that their child will have a better life than them. It was the exact same conversation that everybody in America, Canada, Mexico, Europe, anywhere else has. We're all the same. We're
Yeah.
all there, but there's a social construct that's been put there. So when I travel, I realize that we really are all the same. We have the same beliefs. We have the same hopes. There are 8 billion people here who are wanting to express themselves with the same desires and the same hopes. And that's just for a better tomorrow. And then you look at skill sets, like you always talk about Sullivan's unique abilities, which is brilliant. We all have unique abilities. What would happen? Let's just say half of the 8 billion people, 4 billion people are operating in their unique ability with a belief that they can help somebody else have a better tomorrow. And nobody's telling them they can't. No religious organization, no government, no one's saying you can't do it. Now, there's rules, and I get it. It's like an HOA. You want to live here, you got to follow a few rules. I get it. That's good. But nobody, there's not a rule out there in free world. I mean, communists will do it, but there's not a world out there that says you can't be the best you can be. But you got to be free to give yourself permission, which means you can't let somebody else tell you what they read and what it means. You can't listen to somebody and then translate that to somebody else. People are going to have to do it on their own. And then when that happens, man, it's going to change everything. But what you're doing, like you said, the ethos of the Viking mindset and the academy is everything, because exploration means thought. It doesn't mean you have to travel. It just means I want to think about something differently. And if thinking means I need to go from Norway to the Newfoundland Islands, which is basically what the
Yeah.
Vikings,
Yeah.
first did when they got there, and through Greenland and Iceland and all that stuff, and they were exploring. But what they were was they were seeking new ideas. Is there a better way of getting there? Is there something else
Yeah.
out there? A lot of it was economics. Fine, it's good. But they were exploring, they were seeking new ideas and new opportunities. And going back to old William Shatner up there, and I'll close on this. Think about what those original lines were in Star Trek: a 5-year mission to boldly go where no one has ever gone before. That wasn't just travel, it was thinking about things boldly where no one has gone before. That's what separates us. But at the same time, we allow ourselves to let other us's, other people that are in our species, tell us what we can't do. And I think the work that you're doing with Viking Academy, that Dan Sullivan and Babs and everybody in that team at Strategic Coach is doing, is they're giving people permission. You're giving people permission to think differently, to explore, to seek out, to boldly go. And it's funny, I asked Shatner that. I said, "What's your favorite line from all that?" And he said, "Boldly go." He didn't say boldly go where no one has gone before. He just said boldly go. And I think that's the epitome of the Viking Academy. Just boldly go and try it. And then who knows what's going to happen.
Oh, dude, that was beautiful. Okay. I'm not going to add anything more to that. Let's boldly go. Thank
Boldly
you,
go. Let's do
dude.
it. All right.
Thank you for being on the podcast again, brother. We're going to have you back on again for sure. Really
You're the
soon.
best, man. Everybody should be doing your stuff. Everybody should be doing your stuff. So I'm proud of you. Thanks for doing what you're doing.
Love you, brother.
Love you too, buddy. See ya.
Thanks for listening to the Viking Academy podcast. Make sure to leave us your honest feedback by leaving a review on Apple or Spotify and hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.